Hey friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, insane people, and everything in between. So let's begin. Take notes of everything you say in the meeting? Okay, but it will get you fired. So this happened a few years ago, and I will be vague since I'm still not sure if the dust has fully settled from this fiasco yet. At my former company, I was the secretary for a small improvement team that would meet monthly to discuss issues from within the company and brainstorm ways to fix them. Something you need to know about me is that I was given this role because people know I am meticulous at keeping records, due to HR-related issues I had at a previous place of employment. I don't think my boss realized that this careful record-keeping applied to her as well, especially when she appointed me to be secretary of this little committee, but I digress. I was a model employee, Reed award-winning, and went above and beyond what was asked, as were many others in my department. But we were still having customer complaints and dealt with regular safety issues, due to the company at large and through no fault of our own. When we brought these concerns to our boss's attention, emails were left unread, and during in-person exchanges we were called whiny, needy, and were told that we needed to just deal with it. Whatever the issue, from items being stolen by customers to people being unhappy with the procedures the boss had set down for us to follow, it was always made to somehow be our fault. When we sought support from other departments, we were met with cold indifference, since the boss was great to them, and we must be exaggerating the things she said to us. Well, during an improvement meeting at the end of the fiscal year, it all came to a head. Myself and a couple of my team members dug our heels in and were insistent about the unresolved issues the boss refused to acknowledge, and she finally went off on us. She told us everyone was incompetent, didn't deserve our jobs, and that maybe customers would like us more if we were more likable. When people pressed her on safety issues, she continued to reiterate that we would just have to deal with it, and that if someone was going to die, they already would have, right? I, as the secretary, did my duty and took notes of all that happened over the course of that meeting. I usually did bullet points, but that night I was feeling a little more thorough, so I wrote down words. Every word that was said, every hateful comment, denial of accountability, and idle threat was recorded in black and white. Now, a second part of my job was to distribute the notes from the improvement meeting to the rest of the company. So come the next morning, I ran about 100 copies of the transcript of the meeting and hand-delivered them to every single department in the building. And things blew up. People from other departments who had attended the meeting were able to verify that everything I had typed up had really been said, and folks were mad, threatening to quit, refusing to do their normal duties, browsing Indeed during work, etc. My boss's boss, who worked at HQ so I didn't get the opportunity to hand her a copy, got wind of these meeting minutes only a few hours after I handed them out, and had an hour-long off-the-record conversation with me about all the safety issues I had documented, all the concerns I had submitted to management in writing, and all the records I had regarding my boss's inaction. She was very grateful for the 100 pages of documentation I sent over, and thanked me for my time. The day after I unleashed Pandora's box, I put in my 2 weeks' notice, took a new job, and pieced out to greener pastures. At first, it seemed like things were calming down after I left, but the following year, the company did not renew my boss's contract. I still feel a bit bad, because I wasn't trying to get her fired or ruin her life. I was just desperate for some accountability thrown her way to create some positive changes in the company. But at the end of the day, I just did what she had asked me to do. Entitled person put their kid in my car to say hi to my dog. Yesterday, my dog and I were road tripping back from spending Thanksgiving with family. A few hours in, we stopped to stretch legs and get some water, pulled into a rest stop with plenty of parking, not very busy. After I let him out to stretch, he was sitting in the back with the windows open, while I pulled up directions in the driver's seat. For context, it's an SUV with the 3-seater bench in the back. My dog was sitting directly in the middle, didn't have his head out of the window. All of a sudden, I see a toddler being lifted into and through the open back window by their parent to pet my dog. The child's body was 50% into my vehicle's open window. This wasn't a hand next to the window to get him to come sniff it. The entitled person is laughing, as is the other entitled person holding a younger baby, standing next to the parent that's currently trapezing their toddler into my car. They did not ask nor say anything. They just laughed and stuck their toddler into my open window. I was so shocked that I audibly gasped and just turned around and gave them a confused and annoyed look. It took at least 5 solid seconds for them to acknowledge my reaction and pull their kid out through the window. Never apologized, just walked away while still laughing. I have a recognizable, friendly, giant breed dog that kids typically want to pet. Luckily, he's already used to having to interact with parents and young kids. This scenario was just so unsafe to me though. These parents have no idea if my huge dog is friendly and put their kid in an extremely unsafe situation, let alone the rudeness of just entering someone else's vehicle. In what remote world was this okay to do? I wish I wasn't so shocked and said something. Asked me to get out of the wheelchair spot on the bus for her stroller. I'm a wheelchair user and was taking the bus like I always do. There are specific spots at the front of the bus that are for disabled people and the elderly to use. I was sitting in my wheelchair strapped into the bus, and a woman with a twin stroller got on and asked me if I would get off so she could put her stroller where I was parked. I told her that I would absolutely not. The spot was for disabled people, not her stroller, and she can take the next bus if she really needs to. She tells me she has an appointment to get to, so I tell her right back that she can fold her stroller up and go further into the bus if she really needs to take this one, but I'm not moving. She gestures at my crossed legs, and she had the balls to ask me to fold up my wheelchair and walk it to farther back. I am able to walk, just not much. I literally just started laughing, and she accused me of faking my disability. She refused to move out of the front of the bus area, where the driver can't have people, and was promptly kicked off the bus. Good luck getting to that appointment, lady. My neighbor tries claiming my house. I'm 15 and I was playing some video games before passing out. It was about, say, 11 p.m. when I hear the doorbell ring. Out of instinct, I begin walking downstairs, but about halfway there, rationality came to mind. Who the f*** rings a doorbell at 11 p.m.? I silently strode back upstairs and stood in the hall, kinda expecting something bad to happen. An exact minute later, it rings twice. My parents begin to leave their room and give me a quizzical look, and all I had to respond was a shrug. Then he starts banging on the door. My mother jumps at the first bang, and my father's eyes widened, but more in confusion than fear. He decided to go downstairs and peep through the view hole. It was our neighbor. My dad hesitantly opened the door, and I could hear my father's voice tremble slightly. "Hey, what do you need?" Next thing I hear is an entire full-blown scream argument from our neighbor, claiming that this household was his, and we stole it from him. My father's uneasiness was quickly replaced with annoyance, and he simply shut the door without giving our neighbor the time of day. My dad stepped on the first step going up the stairwell, when our neighbor first hit the door. I'm not talking banging with a fist. This man was full body slamming it. My father was stunned for a second, and my neighbor charged the door again. This time we began to hear the splintering of wood. Everyone reacted at once. My father went to brace the door with his body. My mother went to go get the other 2 kids, and I went for 911. The body slamming ensued for another 5 minutes, and while I was on the phone with 911, it stopped. I thought it was over and I was relieved, but I still stuck on the phone. I go peek out the front window of my house, and boy was it only getting started. Our neighbor took his Jeep Wrangler and simply directed it straight at our house. We had zero clue what he was doing, until he hit the gas and we heard the squealing of tires. Then he immediately hit the brakes. He was trying to scare us out of the house. I was still on the phone with 911 and I stepped away from the window to comfort my siblings, crack jokes and such. Eventually police arrived and arrested him. The next morning I left for school, still shaken from the night before. I stepped onto our front steps and saw tire marks leading up to our front door. The lunatic actually nearly rammed our door down with his car. I really never want to see this guy ever again, but he lives directly to my right. Screw my life. Edit. Alright, I don't know if he has a mental illness or not. I'm sorry. And in the comments someone asked, did you ever find out why he was behaving that way? Drunk or something? Either way, terrifying. NOP says, no, my guess is drugs. While in his car, he was fidgeting with everything imaginable. And they also say he is back out currently, which I'm assuming is back out of jail. I don't believe my family is going to be taking any legal action here. However, if a similar experience does happen again, I'll be preaching and singing to heaven for a restraining order. Dude, you just cut off the wrong funeral. Yesterday I found myself in an unfortunate situation. I was coming from a doctor's appointment and there was a very long string of cars with hazards on and little flags, all making the same turn. You know what's pretty high up there on the whole adulting importance scale? Not screwing with the funeral procession. When you see a hearse followed by a whole line of cars with their hazards on in the US, it's a funeral procession. It can suck if you're in a hurry, but there are certain things you simply do not do, such as honking at a funeral procession, or shouting, "What the hell, let's go," at the top of your lungs at a funeral procession, or getting fed up, cutting around the 3 cars in front of you and then bullying your way through a funeral procession making a turn. You know when it's extra super duper important to not do that? When it's a firefighter's funeral procession. Not only because this person who willingly enters burning buildings to save people and thus merits respect. You ever see a burning building? I have. You know what I did? Stood there slack-jawed and just watched. But because where there's a funeral for a firefighter, there are other emergency responders. Lots and lots and lots of cops, all of whom are not in a good mood. So I'm the first in a line of spectators at a T intersection, where the funeral procession is driving towards me and turning right. Some idiot 2 cars back in a Porsche starts honking impatiently after 2 minutes. At minute 3, he sticks his head out the window and shouts something out the window like it's going to help. Gives up on honking and just lays on the horn at minute 4. The procession proceeds because funeral. I roll up my window because loud. At minute 5, the Porsche decides the heads-up play is to just cut the wheel, zip around the cars in front of them, and then shove their way through the funeral procession. He made it about 5 car lengths past cutting off a funeral procession before he got cut off and pulled over by a state trooper, who immediately had backup in the form of the next 3 cars in the procession. They were still there when the procession finally ended. I may or may not have waved on my way past. Alright, well thank you for watching everyone, I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So have an amazing day, take care, and I'll see you all next time.